There was duct tape on the wrist and across the mouth.
Bruises that would basically mimic fingers.
A heinous attack.
They suffocated her till she expired.
A murder with a multitude of suspects.
They've been neighbors for a while, but was there something that happened between them that nobody was really aware of?
Or was this a gang initiation robbery murder?
It was a 4-carat diamond worth about $30,000.
The truth will be revealed.
Once you find out there's a love triangle, now you're going to look at the other woman.
If you know details about the crime scene, that means you participated in the crime or you found out about it.
So it threw a red flag up to us that we had to watch this guy.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. Cordova, Tennessee, a wealthy suburb of Memphis, tucked into the southwest corner of the state.
It's upper middle class. People there are professionals. You know, the houses were big, located on a very nice golf course.
The church is a big part of the community. A lot of our friends have strong Christian beliefs.
And with that privileged life comes security.
In that part of town, you have the car burglaries, the house burglaries, the thefts and stuff like that. Not a lot of violent crime.
But on a warm fall evening in this sleepy southern town, the community's faith would be tested.
Shortly after midnight, on October 26th, Joe Corona came into the police department in order to report his wife missing.
Mr. Corona advised us that his wife had left around 10:50 in the morning that Saturday, and she was driving a black truck. And he hadn't heard from her in like 12 hours.
Detectives immediately put out an all-points bulletin on the black truck.
On October 27th, at about 8:05 in the morning, I was notified of the truck being found in Bartlett, Tennessee. And I'm thinking, the person that they think's endangered, missing for almost 2 days, and now her vehicle's found parked on the street. This is not good.
Law enforcement find the truck on a dead-end street in a rough part of town.
As I walk up and I look, not touching anything, but using my hands to look into there, I'm like, that's a body.
We could see the ankles and the legs between the front and back seat. The body had been covered with a towel. The truck was in perfect condition and parked right underneath a no parking sign.
And I'm like, why would somebody park under a no parking sign? That started making us think the killer had remorse for the person being dead. It was parked there so they won't sit in a vehicle for weeks, months. They want the person to be found.
The victim is positively identified as 44-year-old Tina Corona.
I remember Tina because she had such a big, beautiful smile and a big personality. A room lit up when she walked into it.
She just would take charge of anything you were working on together, and you just like, man, I want to be on the Tina train. This gal's got it going on. She's a very capable woman and just so much fun.
Tasked with solving the brutal homicide of Tina Corona are detectives Kevin Martin and John Owen.
The strange thing about the body was that her hands were duct taped together. But it was like they put a piece of duct tape around and just touched it. That didn't appear as though someone was trying to actually restrain her.
And there was duct tape across the mouth, but it wasn't covering the mouth.
Her shoes were set and the driver's floorboard up beside the seat just sat down real nice and neat. So that didn't really make a lot of sense. It was done as if it were staged.
I noticed that the glove box had been rummaged through, but not the armrest. And it was just odd because in other auto burglaries and robberies that I'd worked, if they were going to rummage through one thing, they were rummaged through everything.
She still had on her wedding band. It was a 4-carat diamond worth about $30,000. I'm not trying to be mean, but if I'm robbing somebody, I'm going to take that ring.
Detectives suspect they are dealing with a homicide, staged to look like a burglary gone wrong.
We noticed that we had 3 long bruises on the left forearm. Bruises that would basically mimic fingers. They almost looked like 3 fingers of a hand. And then we saw some bruising on her right upper hip and her right inner thigh. Looking at how the body was positioned in the vehicle, looking at the shoes, it would appear as though she had had a struggle with someone, but we didn't believe that the struggle happened inside the vehicle.
Investigators determine the cause of death.
The medical examiner said it was asphyxiation and wasn't a strangulation. If someone was strangled, there would be marks on the neck or damage to the neck if it was strong enough, and fingerprints and DNA and everything else. Asphyxiation means that the air was cut off, which could have been caused by a garbage bag over the head.
To find the killer, detectives will need to unravel the final 24 hours of Tina Corona's life.
So the only information we had for our timeline was when she was leaving her house at 10:50 on Saturday. And then the ending point where we found the vehicle on Monday at approximately 8 o'clock in the morning.
Detectives canvass the neighborhood where Tina's car was found.
We get information from one of the neighbors who says that she noticed that the vehicle was there about 12:50 on Saturday when she was getting ready to go to work. Now we're down to 10:50 to 12:50, so there's a 2-hour window. Somewhere in between there is when the murder occurred.
Detectives break the news to Joe that his wife has been murdered.
He responded in a breaking down, crying, extremely emotional way.
Everybody loved Joe. He was, the Italian stallion, so to speak.
Joe was selling shoes, and somehow Cupid's arrow struck Tina, and she fell for Joe. I know Tina looked up to Joe, and I know from hearing it firsthand many times how much Joe said he loved Tina. They were just a fabulous couple.
Joe tells detectives they had a great life together.
Tina was very successful. She worked for a financial advising firm and had been working her way up and was doing very, very well financially.
Through some connections, she was able to get Joe into selling annuity products.
She made 6 figures. She took care of him.
They went down to casinos and did vacations and cruises. They were checking off a lot of things on their bucket list all the time.
Tina and Joe were members of the Memphis Corvette Club. They had some classic cars that they had invested in. There were 8 cars that were owned by the Coronas. 4 of them stayed in storage and 4 were at the house.
Detectives asked Joe to account for Tina's movements on the day she disappeared.
Joe tells us that they get up about 8 o'clock in the morning and they start doing chores.
About 10:15, she had a phone call with Matt Struna.
We were planning on having this progressive dinner with the entire Corvette Club. You would stop at one house for maybe an appetizer, and then you would drive to another house and have a main course.
Tina had been elected to the presidency of that club, which meant that she was in charge of planning the dinners.
I thought, well, I'll go and help Tina if she needs it. So I called. She did not say she needed any help. Tina is a take charge. I can handle it. Don't worry about it. I've got this.
And according to Joe, about 10:50, Tina had left the house in a truck to go shopping for the Progressive dinner.
So Joe tells us he makes a phone call 11:30 that he's going to go to his friend's house, Mr. Hathaway, and they're going to work on his vehicle. So Joe drives the vehicle over, and he stays there working on his vehicle until Mrs. Hathaway comes out and says, Joe, you need to get ready for the party. It's coming up pretty quick. So he went home, and he attempts to contact Tina and gets no answer. Then he attempts to call her again at 4:12 and no answer. He calls again at 4:44 and there's still no answer. So he ends up calling someone from the Corvette Club at 4:45 and says, have you heard from Tina in regards to the party? And no one has.
The Corvette Club at that point organizing search parties to go out looking for Tina.
We did divide up the entire Corvette Club into several large groups, probably within a 20-mile radius. My level of worry was pretty high. Maybe she was carjacked or kidnapped because Tina wasn't one to drive off and leave family or husband or friends. You knew something was terribly wrong.
It was about 12 hours later, after midnight on the 26th, that Joe Corona showed up at the police station reporting her missing.
To take 12 hours to report someone missing, especially someone you care about, that you're in a longer-term relationship with, I think is very suspicious.
Being the husband, naturally, in most every case, that's your first suspect.
Why do so many husbands kill their wives? It comes down to often control, entitlement, and greed. And there's really no other way to slice it.
With suspicion swirling around Joe Corona, detectives check his alibi with friend and neighbor, Gary Hathaway.
He did say that Joe had showed up and that they stayed there and they worked on the car the whole time. So Gary was basically with him during that time frame.
After ruling Joe out as a suspect, they ask him who might want Tina dead.
Who would not like her? Who would have something in for her? No one. She was a nice person. She didn't have any enemies.
They then get an alarming call from officers combing the area where Tina's truck was found.
They saw this man out in the middle of the field, which is a strange place for somebody just to be, and so they went up to him.
Detective Owen and I left and went to that location. And when we got there, patrol had detained a gentleman by the name of Jeff Cox. He was armed at the time. This is not right. Something's weird.
A lot of times when you have suspects, they will want to return to the scene to see what's going on. So it threw a red flag up to us that we had to watch this guy.
He was a neighbor of Tina Corona, and he was friends with her, and he was extremely upset with what happened.
He tells detectives that he is familiar with the area where Tina's truck was parked.
One of those streets was a big drug haven where people would come and purchase drugs. And he thought, since he knew the area, that somebody from that drug location might have had something to do with Tina's death, and he was gonna find the clues to help solve the killing of his friend, Tina.
There are many reasons why a killer might lurk around the crime scene after they've killed. Sometimes it's from a place of anxiety. They want to see, have police been called? What is happening? Do people know?
If they have psychological problems, it's a high for them to go back and look at their work. Or sometimes they take trophies. We didn't know if that was what was going on with Mr. Cox.
Detectives consider possible motives.
They've been neighbors for a while, but was there something that happened between them that nobody was really aware of? Was there an interaction, an argument, a fight that might have led Jeff Cox to want to kill Tina Corona?
Sometimes when people are interviewed in the field or at the scene and behaving in suspicious ways can be very valuable. People may respond differently when they're informed that this is a serious situation and there's costs here. I think as part of any investigation, this is always a good strategy to help rule in and rule out suspects, especially ones who are behaving oddly or in an atypical manner.
Detectives asked Jeff where he was during the critical time they believe Tina was killed.
During the time frame that Tina was killed, he was with his wife the whole time.
He didn't have anything to do with it.
We determined that maybe this guy was trying to be a good Samaritan and be a good neighbor, and he just took it overboard.
As strange as it sounds, many of these cases bring these characters out of the woodwork, and they insert themselves early on, and they can prove to be very frustrating distractions that do little else other than muddy the waters, and we see it in this case.
Looking for their next lead, detectives comb over Tina Corona's phone records. They notice something strange.
As the Corvette Club was trying to help find what happened with Tina, Joe Corona was told by someone by the name of Joe Underwood that he had spoken with Tina that morning.
Joe Underwood is a member of the same Corvette Club the Coronas belong to. Joe claims he called Tina to ask her what food she was going to bring to the party that evening.
So as we're looking through the records, and it shows incoming, outgoing calls, drop calls, everything else, we're not able to find any record on either phone, Tina's personal phone or her business phone, where Mr. Underwood has contacted her.
Suspicious as to why Joe Underwood would lie about talking to Tina on the morning she disappeared, detectives bring him down to the station for questioning.
So Mr. Underwood's telling us that he spoke to Tina between 10 and 12. Well, we know Tina left at 10:50, and we also know that the vehicle was parked there at 12:50. So he's claimed to talking to her in this 2-hour time frame, which could have been the time when she was murdered. We present him with this evidence, and he is still determined to say that he spoke to her during that time frame. Why would someone do that?
Detectives begin to theorize why Joe Underwood would want Tina dead.
Was this a power play over her role with the Corvette Club? Was there something more illicit going on? Was he infatuated with her and had been rejected by her?
So we start asking more questions about Mr. Underwood with the individuals at the Corvette Club. They end up telling us that he's kind of on the outside of the inner core of the Corvette Club, and that he wants to present himself in a better light.
Detectives decide to take a different approach and ask Joe his theory on who killed Tina.
And it's here where the ball is put in the suspect's court to offer an explanation that in many cases will reveal that they know more than they're letting on, or will reveal a motive that hadn't previously been considered. Often the suspects themselves are the best sources of information. It's one of the oldest tricks in the book, but it's still in the book because it works.
Underwood tells detectives he believes that the motive for killing Tina wasn't a robbery because she was still wearing her diamond rings.
We're like, wait a minute, how do you know anything about rings?
How does he know it other than the fact that he was there?
If you know details about a crime scene and you weren't privy to that information, did you participate in the crime?
Begs the question, is he the killer?
Detectives are working a theory that Tina could have been killed by Joe Underwood, a friend and fellow member of the Corvette Club.
So as we're speaking with him, he says, if the rings are there, is one crime, and if the rings are missing, it would be a robbery. And we're like, okay, how do you know anything about rings? He knows about our crime scene.
Underwood then tries to implicate fellow Corvette club member and previously ruled out suspect, Jeff Cox.
We start thinking, well, wait a minute, why is he trying to throw him under the bus? Why would you try to divert us from talking to you and sending us to him?
People might offer another suspect because they genuinely have an idea it could be that person. Sometimes if it's the perpetrator themselves, they may deliberately try to divert attention away from themselves and specifically onto someone else.
We asked him where he was on Saturday, the 25th, and he explained to us that he was at work from 9 to about 3:20 at his business.
We know through phone records and business records that he couldn't have had any involvement because he was 30 minutes away from the scene when it occurred, and we can put him there all morning. So we know he wasn't involved.
Detectives then learn that Underwood has a relative in the police department, which is how he knew about the crime scene.
His lying, I think, came from wanting to feel important in the case, thinking that it would make him look good in the Corvette club. And that's not something that you want to do when you're talking about a murder case.
For whatever reason, in murder investigations, there are neurotic people who thrive on drama and conflict. And when they find themselves even on the outskirts or periphery of a murder investigation, they simply can't help but insert themselves and begin meddling. What we see is a confusing and contradictory crime scene where a lot of the behaviors don't seem to make sense.
Having ruled out yet another suspect, detectives are nowhere closer to finding Tina Corona's killer.
So the frustration level, of course, is just maxed out. And, there is pressure to solve this crime.
You have to treat it as business. You can't let your emotions get to you. You have to do it based on logic. And that's all you can do.
Detectives return to Tina Corona's inner circle, looking for clues that will hopefully lead to her killer.
So we set up an interview with Tina's brother, Scott, to come and talk with us in regards to Tina and Joe. Scott was not a fan of Joe Corona.
He indicated that the marriage wasn't what it looked like. They put up a good front that they were happy, but truly, behind closed doors, there was something else going on.
He gives us the name of Becky Black, and he says that Joe has been having an affair with her for 10 years.
Joe's affair with Becky is the town's worst-kept secret.
I had gone out with Tina about a month prior to her being murdered. Tina was a little miffed at Joe because they'd gotten in an argument. And I said, well, do you think he's still cheating with Becky? And she just looked down like this, and she said, I don't know. But I knew that she wasn't telling me the truth. And I don't think she meant to lie to me. I think she was trying to convince herself that she didn't know, but she did know.
Once you find out there's a possible love triangle and you can find out who that person is, now you're going to look at the other woman to see if that's the person who's the one who might have murdered Tina.
We often think about a jealous or jilted male eliminating his rival. There are cases where, and it stands to reason, a female will take out her rival, the other female, in order to claim the man. This boils down to simple territoriality.
Detectives shift the focus of their investigation onto the woman Joe was having an affair with, Becky Black.
We find out where she lives, and we go to see her because we want to interview her. And it just so happens the day that we go to the house is the day of the viewing of Tina Corona. She sees us and she's not sure what's going on, and I explained to her who I am and that I needed to speak with her about her relationship with Joe and Tina Corona. She basically went sideways, her knees buckled, and she hit the side of the wall to hold herself up. She almost fell. When I saw her knees buckle, I said, she knows something. She has more information that's going to help us with this investigation. That's what I knew.
Down at the station, detectives question Becky about her relationship with Joe Corona.
She said, well, we were just friends, you know, my husband and I, and we would go over and get in the hot tub together. We would do things together, but it wasn't any big deal. She never admitted to an affair.
As she denies this relationship, other than the friendship, we're thinking that she's not being totally honest with us.
If Becky's gonna lie about this and try to cover it up, then what else is she gonna cover up and lie about?
All lies boil down to one thing: fear. People will lie because they're afraid of the consequences of telling the truth.
At that point, we began to look at her as a potential suspect also. Could she have tried to get Tina out of the way so she could have Joe?
Did Joe say, I'm going to leave Tina for you? And that wasn't happening, or it was taking too long to happen. Was Becky done waiting on that? So she took things into her own hands.
Sometimes when people are part of love triangles, especially rivalrous ones, things can go wrong. Jealousy can be a very powerful motive for murder.
Detectives suspect that Tina Corona might have been murdered by her husband's jealous mistress, Becky Black.
In order to try to eliminate or include Becky as a suspect, we ask for some DNA and for fingerprints. She cooperates, but then she tells the police, I've been in that truck, so I wouldn't be surprised if you found my fingerprints.
But detectives find more than her fingerprints.
We ask, is there a reason why any of your bodily fluids would be in that vehicle? And she explained to us, yes, she and Joe had performed a sexual act in the vehicle.
She came clean with everything. She told us what was going on. She was the other lady in the story, the girlfriend. And she was married, he was married, so they're having an extramarital affair.
Having linked Becky to the crime scene, detectives ask for her whereabouts during the window of time Tina Corona was murdered.
She had said that she'd been out of town. She'd gone with her family into a bonfire in another county that was about 20, 30 miles away, and then had gone to a funeral.
Detectives investigate her alibi by talking with witnesses at the funeral and checking her phone records.
The time of the death, we estimated somewhere between 10 and 12:50 on Saturday, October 25th. Well, for Becky Black, she was out of town at that time at a funeral. It wasn't possible for her to have done it, so she was ruled out as a suspect.
Having eliminated Becky Black as a suspect, detectives refocus their investigation on her lover, Joe.
We have this love triangle, so now we're thinking, did Joe kill his wife?
Detectives ask Becky if she'd be willing to wear a wire.
And she agreed to that. So when she met with him, she started talking about what really happened with Tina.
I just gotta know that everything's gonna be okay.
You and I are connected as a soul. You and I are meant to be together.
I know, but I just keep hearing all this stuff
About what?
About Tina.
What about her?
All this time, I just kept thinking that maybe, you may have done that for me, thinking that was the only way that you could get me. At first I was scared, and then I thought if you did, that made me feel special.
I didn't do it, okay? And when I say I would do anything for you, I mean I wouldn't do something like that.
Well, how do I know a year down the road you're not going to get tired of me?
You know that I have never been mad at you. Everything that I have, I would be willing to give up just to be with you.
At that point is when her whole attitude toward him changed. That gave her a real fear of him.
While not a confession, it encourages detectives to delve further into Joe's potential motive to want Tina dead.
One of the reasons why a husband might kill his wife is because he's tired of living the double life and simply wants to start again with his mistress. It also helps if he could benefit from a life insurance policy or could be getting some money out of his wife's death.
He's been having an affair for 10 years. His wife has money, so why would he kill Tina at this point? He's got his cake and he's eating it too, so why would he have to kill her?
So then we say, let's dig deeper into the personal finances of Tina and Joe and see what's going on. What else makes people want to murder their wives?
Detectives get their answer when they speak to Carrie Brown, one of Tina's closest friends.
Tina had had dinner with Carrie about 5 days before she went missing, and Tina was expressing her concern about some missing money. Tina and Joe had been trying to get a bigger house. But every time they went to get a bigger house, something would fall through, the paperwork wasn't finished.
Tina's like, I don't see how there's any problem with our finances because everything's paid for and we got great credit and da-da-da. And it ended up that Tina started doubting why she couldn't buy this house. She started thinking maybe there's something wrong. Joe takes care of the bills and he takes care of Tina. Whatever Tina wants, he makes sure Tina has. So Tina doesn't worry about the bills. Probably Tina doesn't see the bills.
So she's looking toward Joe for some answers. And Joe Corona, being the personality that he is, that certainly was a big hit to his ego.
Working the theory Joe was deceiving Tina about their finances, detectives check into his business dealings and make a shocking discovery.
The deeper I dug, I started finding out things that just didn't make sense. What he was presenting to the customer versus what he was purchasing for the customer was a large difference. He would sell the customer a $50,000 annuity. In their mind, turned out to be a $5,000 annuity. And then he would take and change the paperwork.
Joe was pocketing the $45,000 difference, essentially stealing the retirement funds of clients. But his deceitful actions didn't end there.
Joe had actually cashed in a $26,000 annuity that was in Tina's name.
So he's got motive now.
So we need to find out if he had the opportunity to kill Tina.
Detectives now believe that Joe may have killed his wife, Tina, because she learned he was defrauding both her and his clients.
So now we've gone back in the investigation to the very beginning to track Joe's movement, to see if we can ping his cell phone from some of the towers around town to see where he was during that 2-hour period that Tina had gone missing.
Joe originally said that he drove from home straight to his friend Gary Hathaway's house, where he stayed working on his car until 4 p.m.
We know through phone records that at 12:22, Joe's phone pinged off of a tower that was en route to where his classic cars were stored. Well, we know the truck was dropped off about a quarter of a mile from there.
We have witnesses who saw that truck at 12:50 on Saturday. And we know that Joe was in that area at 12:22. That tells us that Joe was in that area on his phone at that time, giving us more proof that he had the opportunity to kill Tina. This is huge.
Detectives track down Gary Hathaway, Joe's alibi, and ask more detailed questions about Joe's whereabouts the day of the murder.
So now we have to look a little more closely at Joe's alibi and to see if he really was at the Hathaway's house from 12:50 to 4 o'clock. And clearly he was. Mr. Hathaway said that he had been there.
But Gary Hathaway reveals to police something that has been troubling him.
He said that he saw the Porsche parked in the driveway, which is one of the cars that would normally be at a storage facility. Then he saw the Chevelle parked there also. And then Joe drove up in the red Corvette. And Mr. Hathaway said, you know, normally there's only 2 of the classic cars parked at the house. There's never 3. Something didn't seem right to him about that. He couldn't understand how Joe got to the storage facility to get a 3rd car. That's not normal. And he thought it was odd.
Based on the phone records and Gary Hathaway's concerns, detectives start to work a new theory.
Did Joe drop the truck off with Tina's body in there, cut through the field, pick up his Corvette at the storage unit, and go home?
As detectives dismantle Joe's alibi, the neighbor Jeff Cox comes forth with some new and startling information.
The Coxes had a camera on their house, and it pointed directly, by chance, toward the Corona home. And so this video showed Joe in the truck about 11 o'clock, pulling it into the garage. Jeff Cox said that Joe had come over, and he had shown Joe the video and said, here you are pulling in the truck at the time that Tina went missing. And Joe's like, well, I was just pulling it in so I could load the tables and the ice chests for the progressive dinner for the Corvette Club that night. Joe tells Jeff, don't worry about it. You don't need to keep the video. You can delete it because the police think it's a gang-involved murder.
So they didn't bother to keep it.
Jeff Cox believed his friend at the time, but as the investigation dragged on and it was clear the murder wasn't gang-related, he realized he had valuable information on his hands.
We have probable cause to believe that Joe Corona indeed is the one who murdered Tina. However, he has now left the jurisdiction.
Detectives issue an all-points bulletin and track Joe down at a hotel in Jackson, Tennessee.
So they go to the hotel, they find out which room he's in, and they try to talk him out. And he says, I'm not coming out. He says, I have a gun.
And then we hear click, and then click, click, click. And what he was doing, he's cocking the gun, then decocking it. Cocking it, then decocking it. So we're like, okay, good, we're fixing to get in the shootout.
It becomes very intense. You have a lot of law enforcement there with a lot of firepower.
It's not going to be a good scene.
So law enforcement just swarms in.
We get in the room, he's got a pistol with him, and we explain to him that we've got a warrant for your arrest, so you're going with us.
Detectives are now able to piece together Tina Corona's final 24 hours.
Joe and Tina wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, the 25th. As Tina is getting ready that morning, she received a phone call from Matt Struna, one of the members of the Corvette Club, in regards to helping her with anything she needs at about 10:50 in the morning. My opinion is that Tina was leaving that day. We think maybe she got some mail and opened the mail and found some information regarding some of the financial problems. And maybe she threatened Joe with all the things that he's done, his extramarital affairs, cheating people out of the money. Maybe she said, "I'm going to the authorities." So at that point, Joe panicked.
We think what he did was he grabbed her by the arm, put the bag over her head, then pushed her down on the floor and held her down on the floor with the bag over her head, suffocated her till she expired.
And then Joe had backed the truck in and placed her body in the vehicle.
Before he left, he called Gary Hathaway so that he could get an alibi established.
And then he drove it to the location where the vehicle was found in Bartlett, which was in close proximity to the storage facility that he had classic cars in, and was able to walk there very easily, and got into another vehicle after dropping off the truck, was able to drive back home after that.
I almost see Joe as a red-collar psychopath. Somebody who's engaging in what we would say white-collar crime or fraudulent activities to gain money. They're not violent thugs, but they still have a latent antisocial thinking that allows them to steal money from people. And then the collar turns from white to red when they commit violence in order to basically protect or preserve their own reputation.
Joe Corona is found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison.
When someone turns out to be representing nothing but pure evil, you cease to care about that person. He didn't like anybody touching him. He liked fancy clothes. He liked fancy food. He was very fussy. So I almost get a chuckle thinking what he's going through every morning he wakes up right now.
We felt that we were able to speak for Tina and that we were able to give her justice. That was the bottom line, is that we wanted Tina to have justice.
So it's kind of a bittersweet ending because we got the guy. He's gonna do life in prison, but that will never bring Tina Corona back to her family.
I remember Tina like the sunshine. She was just really friendly and made you feel good. You were like the only person in the world that mattered to her when she was talking to you. She was just special, like nobody else.
This guy was at the top of his game. He was successful. He had beautiful children and a wife.
It's very, very strange. We're definitely puzzled as to why he has just vanished.
A real-life murder mystery.
It's obvious that the alligators have eaten parts of the body.
A grisly murder with a slew of suspects.
Henry was living a double life. This automatically expands the suspect pool.
She was irate, thought maybe he was having an affair.
John does have an alarming history of violence. Maybe there's a sibling rivalry.
Henry had taken his idea and completely cut him out of the deal.
The truth will be revealed.
Who is this person? A friend of Henry's? Is he a hookup, or is he the killer?
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. Miami, Florida, a Latin American melting pot and the heart of the Cuban exile community, where many have come in search of the American dream.
Miami is a very diversified community. It's made up of several different cultures: Cuban, Venezuelan, Colombian, Peruvian, you name it, I think we have it down here. So it makes it unique, and it kind of gives it its own special DNA or footprint, if you will.
But Miami has a dark side, too.
We've seen crime trends come and go, just like every major metropolis city. And just like any major city, we have our share of narcotics, gambling, money laundering. Murders have always kind of been a steady here, because wherever you have the other two, you have murder that sometimes seems to follow it.
On one November morning, just before Thanksgiving, a Miami family's American dream turns into a nightmare.
On November 20th at 8:45 a.m., Isabel Diaz calls the police. She was extremely worried because her husband, Henry Diaz, had been missing since the night before, Friday, November the 19th. Isabel's very distraught. It's out of character for Henry just to go missing, especially for this amount of time.
You can only imagine how hard that would have been when her husband, who had never done anything like this before, was suddenly missing, and she was concerned.
The missing man is 35-year-old Henry Diaz, a local businessman.
Henry and Isabel were high school sweethearts, and they had 3 beautiful children. He was a very devoted husband and father, and she was very happy in that relationship.
Henry is a first-generation Cuban-American whose parents both migrated here from the island of Cuba, and they opened a grocery market. It was a well-established business in this neighborhood.
Heading up the investigation into Henry Diaz's disappearance is Sergeant Mike Brassey. He starts by questioning Isabel, who says that on the day of his disappearance, Henry woke up early as usual and was at work by 6:30 a.m.
The last time Isabel spoke to her husband, Henry, was at 10:03 p.m. on November 19th, that Friday night.
He told her that he was on his way to a business meeting to discuss an upcoming Christmas party.
And so he was supposed to meet with a band leader at a lounge where the thing would have been, and they were going to go over all the last details. Isabel first realized Henry was missing at sometime around midnight when she woke up and he wasn't in bed. She tried to reach him, she couldn't reach him. She went back to bed, and then when she woke up at 6:30 in the morning, he still wasn't there. She had expected him home because they were going on a cruise that day on the 20th. They had to be at the dock at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So she started calling the family and trying to figure out where he could be. At 8:45, she called the police.
To find Henry Diaz, investigators will need to reconstruct the 24 hours leading up to the businessman's disappearance.
This guy was at the top of his game. He was successful. He had beautiful children and a wife, a mother who he was very close with. He just wouldn't have run away.
It's very, very strange. We're definitely puzzled as to why he has just vanished.
To flesh out Henry's timeline, investigators start building a victim profile.
Isabel tells us that Henry is wearing a white shirt, jeans, dress shoes, and a nice watch that he typically wears when going to work. His license plate is a personalized license plate that has the words "Money Man" on the back of it. I relayed to her that I don't think that's the wisest thing to do. It immediately makes him a possible target. We also learned that Henry often carried large quantities of cash, so this became an alarming factor for us as well. So right away, the possibility exists in my mind that he could potentially have been or is the victim of a robbery.
Isabel tells them that Henry's car also has a GPS tracking system installed.
So on Saturday, November 20th at about 6:15 p.m. Henry's vehicle is located in an apartment complex in Hialeah, Florida, and it had a different license plate on the vehicle.
The fact that there's a different set of plates on his car when it's found could have a number of explanations at first glance. One would be that when the plate gets run through the system, it's going to come back to a different car. It becomes then a misdirect. They start looking at this as a potential auto investigation, when in reality it's concealing something far more sinister.
Detectives discover that Henry's car was driven to the apartment complex early Saturday morning and parked around 4 a.m.
This particular part of Hialeah was known for certain types of crime, had car thefts, vehicle burglaries, some narcotics activity, so we found it odd that Henry's vehicle would be parked here.
Hoping to find Henry, investigators raced to Hialeah.
It appeared that somebody had parked the vehicle quite a distance away from the apartment complex and the apartment residences itself.
They noticed on the car that there was some paint transfer on the side of the car. They asked Isabel whether or not Henry had been in any accidents recently that he had mentioned, or had she ever seen that on the car. She indicated no. But what they can observe from the outside looking in is that there's blood on the car. That is not a good sign.
It starts to look like maybe perhaps there was a minor fender bender. Henry goes out of his vehicle to confront or speak with the other driver, and then some form of violent altercation occurs, and that's how maybe there's blood in the vehicle and at the scene. But where's Henry is the main question.
While processing the vehicle, we observe and we find large amounts of blood smear on the steering wheel area, blood on the front floorboard and passenger side front door. There was a small hole to the front interior passenger side door, so the paneling, and it was consistent with what appeared to be a bullet hole or a projectile hole, and that really was suspicious to us. We also find blood in the rear driver's side area as well as on the back seat, and we notice that both front floor mats are missing. It's obvious that somebody attempted to clean up the blood and they're potentially try to get rid of a crime scene.
We've got a car discovered under very suspicious circumstances. We know we're probably looking for a body. The question is it the owner, Henry's body, or has he actually committed a crime and then dumped the getaway vehicle?
Devoted family man Henry Diaz is missing, but his abandoned car has been found. It's covered in blood, and police are convinced that someone's been shot in it. Is the victim Henry or somebody else?
Given the amount of blood that we observe, there's no chance that anybody survived this struggle that occurred within the vehicle.
Using Henry's DNA obtained from a hairbrush they got from his wife Isabel, investigators test it against the blood sample found in the car.
We obtained the DNA results, and we do learn that, in fact, it is a match between the blood that is recovered within the vehicle and the DNA belonging to Henry. So at this point in the investigation, it's determined that we are actually investigating a homicide as opposed to a missing persons case.
Investigators now theorize that Henry was killed between 10:03 p.m. Friday, when he last spoke to his wife Isabel, and 4 a.m. Saturday, when his car was ditched in Hialeah.
When we are processing the fingerprints and the DNA that's collected from inside the vehicle, what we do is it's compared against a database which is maintained in our criminal list. And unfortunately, in our case, we don't receive any hits on the evidence comparisons that are submitted, and it's a dead end for us, and it's very frustrating.
Investigators talk to Isabel again to see if she knows of anyone who might have had a grudge against Henry.
All she could think of was maybe the brothers, because there's some jealousy there. Henry was obviously the most financially successful of the three of them.
When their father passed away, The brothers basically took over the operation of running the supermarket. But we know that Henry was the one at the forefront because he was more of the business savvy, administrative, more polished. The other brothers took care of most of the behind the scenes, manual labor, if you will, setting up schedules and dealing with deliveries. Henry's a partner with his brothers, but he has his own business as well on the side. He had made something more of a business portfolio besides just the supermarkets. And the feeling was that this had caused some sibling jealousy between Henry and his brothers, especially with John.
Sergeant Brassey digs deeper into the Diaz brothers' backgrounds and their reputations.
We learned that there had been some sort of altercation between Henry and his brother John. Actually escalated to the point where John grabbed Henry by the throat, as almost like to appear to grasp him in a choking manner. We also learned that John had previously been the focus of a homicide investigation. He was working in a store when somebody attempted to rob the store. He pulled a shotgun on them, and he got into an exchange with the subject. And ultimately, the would-be robber was shot and killed by John. So we know he is not afraid to use excessive force when put in that situation.
John does have an alarming history of violence. He's reported to have been involved in a shooting in the past. He also is reported to have had a difficult, sometimes challenging relationship with Henry to the extent that maybe there's a sibling rivalry. These are all indicators that make John a viable suspect. And so it's possible that he may have had motive to kill Henry.
With John in their sights, investigators interrogate him about his brother's murder.
John painted the picture that everything was copacetic and everything was kind of hunky-dory between the brothers. But we think it's very worthy and very strange that when we spoke to John, that he did not mention this fight he had with Henry. We don't feel like that we were told the whole truth.
Police asked John about his whereabouts the day Henry disappeared.
John tells us that he last saw Henry Friday afternoon, roughly around 4 p.m., when Henry responded just to kind of give him a list of things that needed to be attended to while he was on vacation.
John went home after work, and he was there until the next morning.
We looked into John's whereabouts and his alibi, and everything checked out, so we moved on.
With John ruled out as a suspect, investigators are hoping he can help fill in Henry's timeline the day of his disappearance.
John tells us that the supposed meeting that was to take place between Henry, John, and the musician never took place. The musician responded to the grocery store at 8:15 and told the brothers basically that he hadn't received confirmation of the meeting, and so he had made other plans. So John, in turn, calls Henry at 8:15 p.m. and lets him know that the meeting for this Christmas party has been canceled.
But Isabel had previously told investigators that when she last spoke to Henry at 10:03 p.m. Friday, he was headed to a meeting about the Christmas party.
We found it odd that Henry did not tell Isabel that the meeting had been canceled, so we asked John if he was having an affair or something that was going on that Isabel wouldn't know about, and John's answer was, no way. That's not Henry, and he doesn't have any explanations to what happened.
The timeline gets clear when Henry's credit card records come in.
Henry's credit card was used at approximately 4:40 in the morning at a gas station in Hialeah, which was close to where the vehicle had been located. His credit card had been used not only at the gas station, but it was used at a supermarket at 4:23 p.m. on that afternoon, and then at 6:20 p.m. at a shoe store, all close in the same neighborhood in Hialeah. It was very clear to us that whoever used the credit card most likely could be the person or persons who dropped the vehicle in Hialeah. So we asked Isabel not to cancel the card simply because whoever was using it, we felt that it was going to be very likely that they would continue to use it, because the moment that the card was canceled while they were trying to complete a transaction, they would know that whoever was looking for Henry now knows that he's not using his credit card, that it's somebody else.
The police have the address of the gas station, so they go to the gas station and inquire whether or not there's any video or security footage of people making transactions. They get the footage and they see a picture of somebody using the credit card. That's a big break in the case. They take a snapshot of the video footage of the person using the credit card, and they take it to Isabel to see whether or not she recognizes the man. When the thing is shown to Isabel, she does not recognize the man, but she sees the wallet that he's holding, and that's a very unique wallet. It was handmade, and she says that's Henry's wallet.
Investigators are now focused on identifying the mystery man and uncovering how he could be connected to Henry's murder.
Something bad happened to Henry, but the main question, which is who did it and where's his body, still remain unanswered. The only thing we do know is because he had the wallet, there's a good chance that that's the guy who knows something about the disappearance of Henry Diaz. So they put out flyers into the community to see whether or not anybody has noticed this man.
The investigators' community outreach doesn't help them identify the mystery man on the security video, but it does lead them to their first real break in the case.
I get a call from the homicide detectives. There's been a body found in the Everglades. A fisherman found it and called in to Broward County Sheriff's Office.
The body was found drifting in a wildlife hotspot known as Alligator Alley.
It's obvious that the alligators have eaten parts of the body, but the man appears to be wearing jeans. His arms are missing, but he's wearing clothes consistent with what Isabel said Henry was wearing.
A human body in the Everglades, badly mangled, badly mutilated. The question at that point is, given the state of the body, is this Henry or is this some other victim?
Police have recovered a body in the Everglades, but it's been in the water for several days and has been mutilated by alligators, so they can't immediately confirm if it's Henry Diaz.
They're not able to visually identify that person because after he's been in the water that long, his face really doesn't have the characteristics that it would have had when he was alive. So they take Henry's dental records and they're compared to the victim's teeth. And it's a match. They confirm that it's Henry Diaz.
Detectives start working a theory on how Henry's murder likely unfolded.
Henry was shot perhaps in one vehicle, moved to another vehicle, and then his body was dumped. One wonders, what is the psychology of somebody who would do this? Perhaps they want the body to be exposed to the elements because this exposure could cause evidence linking a time frame or a time of death or a manner of death to be eroded. Is this something that's a hit and has been highly organized, or is moving to different vehicles and dumping the body something that somebody's doing in a disorganized manner and in an impulsive way just wants to get rid of any evidence?
Sergeant Brassey breaks the news of Henry's death to his family.
I think this is such a horrifying way to hear that your loved one was handled at the end of their life. But the one thing the police did tell them, though, however, was that Henry would have been dead instantly and didn't suffer.
When investigators ask who would want to kill Henry in such a brutal way, Isabel suggests they look at Henry's second business, Gentle Hands, a home health care company that he runs independently from his brothers.
Henry had bought Gentle Hands about 3 weeks before he was killed. I believe the sale took place on November 1st, and he was still working with the people that used to own it to learn the business, but basically he took over the business at that point.
When investigators interview Henry's employees at Gentle Hands, they uncover a surprising new lead.
We learned that there was some sort of disagreement or argument between Henry and Pedro Rodriguez. They were going to, at one point, combine efforts to buy this home health care business, and that they were going to venture on this business opportunity together. But we learned from the employees that Henry had actually cut Pedro Rodriguez out of the deal and that Pedro was a little upset about it. because he stood to lose quite a bit of money. So, as we know in a lot of our investigations, money is often a strong motive for murder. And in this case, that's an immediate red flag for us as well.
Sergeant Brassey digs into Pedro's background and makes a shocking discovery.
We find out that his name had come up in some sort of Medicaid fraud investigation that was conducted by the FBI. And so we felt the need to speak with Pedro in person to see if there was any other suspicious interactions that he had with Henry.
Money may be a potential motive here. There's a business deal that Henry has reportedly done that had cut one of his ex-business partners out of some financial gain, or maybe he's stolen an idea from someone. Clearly, there's money that's involved. That always produces strong emotions, but there may be also other feelings of betrayal that run deeper than that as well, that could be felt by a business partner.
Police haul Pedro down to the station for questioning.
Initially, I noticed that he's a little suspicious as to why the police would want to interview him in the murder of Henry. It's concerning just simply because he knew that Henry hadn't been heard from. We asked him how he had heard this, and he said that an employee at Henry's business had called him and let him know.
Investigators push Pedro about his failed business deal with Henry.
Pedro told us that he had approached Henry and said, hey, listen, I don't have the money, but I do have the idea and the business concept as to how this could be a very lucrative business for both of us. Henry seemed interested, and he listened to his plan, to his sales pitch. He said he would get back with him, and he didn't hear from Henry for a while, and he had later learned that Henry had taken his idea and bought the business and completely cut him out of the deal. Pedro told us he was quite angry, he was hurt, he was offended.
Pedro had a motive to murder Henry, but when investigators pursue his alibi, they learn he was at work during the hours that Henry was killed. He's eliminated as a suspect.
The professional pressure that you feel, it's only natural with being a homicide investigator, but knowing that I'm a resident of the community, I live in Miami-Dade County, and the biggest question for us is, again, trying to piece together what could have happened. We still don't know where it happened and what part of Dade County. Could be in Henry's driveway. It could have been right outside of his business. We still don't know, and so we have a lot of unanswered questions that we're not able to provide closure, to provide answers to the family and/or to the public.
Having hit another dead end in their investigation, detectives pull Henry's cell phone records, looking for any clues that could point to his killer.
At around 10, there's several calls made to the same number, and the last one being at 10 o'clock. And that call is answered. The phone number belongs to somebody named Jose.
Detectives track down Jose and summon him to the station to answer some questions.
Jose is contacted, and he tells them that he met Henry on a gay website. The fact that Henry would be looking at a gay website is kind of unusual, based on what the family and the wife and the friends are all telling the cops Henry is all about. Jose tells them that he and Henry had been together once before, and he said that Henry told him that he was gay, but he was married. Henry was trying that night to get together with Jose, and that was unsuccessful. The police, once they hear that Jose is gay and that Henry is interacting with him, they begin to think that Henry maybe has a life very different from what everybody in his family planted about his life with Isabel and the children.
Investigators do a deep dive into Henry's computer and discover prior to his death, he'd been secretly arranging hookups with more men.
So they have their forensic computer people examine the computer, and they find that he has been on many gay websites and spends a lot of time looking and searching through the websites. The idea that if somebody was secretly gay, they might be more likely to get in a situation that they couldn't get out of and maybe would get killed. Especially somebody who has a tag saying money man and is representing himself as a very successful, good-looking businessman.
Investigators turn to the Diaz family, hoping to learn more about Henry's online activities.
We speak with Isabel regarding what we've recently learned. So we ask her if she knows if Henry had ever been known to frequent gay websites online or anything that would lead her to be suspicious. So Isabel tells us that there's no way. He's a great father, he's a great husband, great brother. There is no way that this could possibly be true.
Henry's family now believe the cops were lying. They believe that this couldn't possibly be true. They just wouldn't accept it.
I think this would be very shocking, just because this would seem to come out of nowhere to a family who has, in all appearances, many different values than what this lifestyle they may think could indicate. For Henry, what is concerning to me is that there may be lots of pressure, both from a religious, family, and at a community level, not to disclose or to keep certain parts of yourself secret. But it's just also opening maybe some opportunities for offenders to be motivated to harm him in some way.
Things get complicated even further when we realize Henry was living a double life. Father and family man, and on the side was frequenting gay websites and hooking up with a variety of men. This automatically expands the suspect pool, and these are people who, because of Henry's second life and his not advertising who these people were, are gonna likely be very difficult to track down.
Armed with information that murder victim Henry Diaz had been living a secret life, detectives re-examine the surveillance video of the man seen using Henry's credit card.
The security footage from the gas station depicts an unidentified male there, and like a lot of security video, has no context. The question at that point is, who is this person? Is he a friend of Henry's? Is he a hookup? Or is he the killer?
Detectives are still unable to identify the mystery man through the video alone, but flyers soliciting his identity are still circulating in the community as the investigation continues.
We still don't receive any public information or even anonymous tips. We go back to the drawing board and let the case take us to the next direction, whichever it may be.
The big break in this investigation comes on November 30th at 12:55 in the morning. Hialeah police are called to a fight that's broken out between two gentlemen, and they go on the scene, and one of the Hialeah officers recognizes one of the people in the fight from the wanted poster that went out.
The man's name is Yosvani Fernandez.
A female by the name of Maria is also involved in this incident. Hialeah police bring both of them in for questioning and notify us.
When Sergeant Brassi looks into Yosvani's background, he learns he has a criminal past. Back in Cuba, he spent 10 years in prison for hijacking and theft before escaping and fleeing to Miami.
Anybody who's had run-ins with the law is somebody that you need to look at. It means if you're willing to violate rules and laws in the past, you may be willing to do so in the future. So he's certainly a viable suspect in my mind.
We also learned that Yosvani has a dark-colored four-door Mercedes register him. And even more coincidental, if you will, we locate a dark four-door Mercedes registered to Yosvani Fernandez in the same apartment complex as where we found Henry's vehicle. So we take Yosvani Fernandez's photo and we show it to the clerks at all the stores where the credit card was used that belonged to Henry, and they positively identify him as being the individual who made the purchases.
Having zeroed in on Yosvani as their prime suspect, Sergeant Brassi hauls him in for questioning.
Yosvani kept denying everything. He said he didn't know anything about it. He had nothing to do with anything, and he didn't know Henry. So he basically denied everything, and they got nowhere.
Sergeant Brassi confronts Yosvani with the surveillance footage of him using Henry's credit card.
When we asked him if he knew Henry or could even possibly be dating him, he became very irate and just frustrated and couldn't believe that we would ask him a question like that. And so we asked him why he would possibly be using Henry's credit card. He said that he found the wallet on the ground. He didn't know who it belonged to.
Not believing Yosvani's story, Sergeant Brassey questions him about his whereabouts on the night Henry was killed.
His alibi was that he was probably out with one of his girlfriends. He doesn't know which one, he can't remember.
Hoping to poke holes in Yosvani's alibi, Sergeant Brassey also interviews Yosvani's girlfriend, Maria.
When speaking with Maria, we asked her if she knew where Yosvani was on the night of November 19th, and she found it odd that we would ask her that.
But she responds to the question, and she says she was working. She works at, I think, a bar or something like that, and Yosvani dropped her off at work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and was supposed to come pick her up at the end of her shift. And then she received a call from Yosvani about 10:30 p.m. And then after that, shortly thereafter, Yosvani and another gentleman came to visit her. And they stayed for a couple minutes, and then they left.
Maria then tells Sergeant Brassey that when her shift ended, Yosvani wasn't there to pick her up.
She remembers very specifically calling Yosvani several times and that he would not answer the phone. Well into the late hours of Friday the 19th into the morning hours of the 20th. She was irate, thought maybe he was having an affair, confronted him, and then he called her back from another number not belonging to him.
He said that he would be there shortly, and she said, "Don't bother, I'm getting another ride." She went to a club with a friend. He then called her again and said he'd pick her up there and take her home, and that happened around 4:30 in the morning. When he took her home, they had a big fight. She went to bed. The next morning, he told her he would like to take her to breakfast.
Sergeant Brassey leans on Maria about Yosvani's whereabouts when he wasn't answering the phone. She swears she doesn't know anything else.
At that point, detectives showed a picture of Henry with his arms cut off by the alligators, and went through the fact that he had a family and went through the whole story about what had happened to Henry.
Horrified by what she's just learned, Maria breaks down.
She then admitted that she had lied, and she tells them everything she knows.
Ultimately, the break in this case comes, as it often does, with a woman scorned, who was also being lied to and who, upon realizing this, has enough material knowledge to completely shake the case loose.
After several false starts, investigators finally have their prime suspect in the Henry Diaz murder, former felon Yosvani Fernandez. And as it turns out, his girlfriend Maria knows a lot.
So Maria finally tells us that Yosvani confessed to her because he was afraid, since she was alleging that he was having an affair with another woman.
Maria said basically Yosvani told her he had robbed somebody, he had killed the person, they had dumped the body in a place where alligators would chew up the body. Homicide detectives right away are able to now go through each piece of evidence with her, and she's cooperating, and she's saying what Yosvani said and what he told her and stuff. So she becomes, of course, a very important witness in this case.
Maria reveals that Yosvani wasn't working alone, and that the phone he called her from the night of Henry's murder belonged to his accomplice.
We subsequently found out through his phone records the phone belonged to an individual named Michael. Once we know where he lives and his whereabouts, we go and we meet with him and we bring him into the office.
Investigators interrogate Michael about his role in Henry's murder.
We let him know, first and foremost, that Yosvani has told us everything, just to try to get as much information as we can from him as well.
Michael talks, but he's selective when it comes down to the details.
Michael said he came here from Cuba in 2004, January. He met up with Yosvani. Yosvani didn't have any money and needed a loan, and he lent him $500. He expected Yosvani was going to pay him back, and he still hadn't been paid back.
Michael reveals that he was working with Yosvani just to get his money back.
It could be that they knew Henry. They knew he was a businessman. He had a personal plate that said money man. Maybe he was deliberately targeted because they wanted to extort him for further money by threatening to reveal his sexuality. In some ways, it feels unsatisfying because we're left with more questions than answers. And the biggest one that's the most unsatisfying to me is that it was only over a small sum of money. I want to know why somebody would resort to violence. Why would somebody kill Henry in this way? I think you can safely say this is a bias-motivated homicide.
Michael and Yosvani aren't revealing much, but their cell phones might.
Because of the cell towers, we know that Michael's phone is being tracked, leaving the crime scene to where Henry's body was dumped. And it's pinging, which means that it's alerting on these various cell towers, leading both out to where Henry's body was dumped and subsequently located, and it's leading all the way back in to where we eventually find the vehicle parked in the apartment complex.
Believing Michael is the weak link, police confront him with these findings.
It's always key if you've got two or more suspects and you're going to play them off each other to identify the weak link, the one who will acquiesce, who will cave the most quickly, who can be flipped, as we say. Often, it comes down to someone who has the most to lose. And that can be carefully worked by the authorities in order to convince this person one way or another to cooperate.
I was with my back facing him when I suddenly hear him say, no, I cannot leave him here because then he's going to accuse me or denounce me to police. So when you up yes, sir. I opened the door to get into the car. That's when I heard the shot.
You turned around and saw Mr. Fernandez with a gun in his hand.
Usted se dio la vuelta y vio al señor Fernandez con la pistola en la mano. Sí.
When we speak with Michael and we present him with the evidence, he tells us exactly what happened simply because now he realizes the trouble that he's in.
With Michael's confession, police are now able to fill in the final 24 hours of Henry Diaz's life.
So after Henry's meeting is canceled, he decides he wants to hook up with somebody. So he first calls Jose, who it turns out wasn't available. And that's when Henry decides he's going to go to a local pickup spot instead.
At 10:03, Isabel and Henry speak on the phone for the last time.
Meanwhile, Yosvani suggested to Michael that he come and help him do a robbery. They would try to find somebody who was trying to hook up with a gay person, and they'd be too embarrassed to report it, and then Michael would have his money, and that would be the end of him paying the debt.
Yosvani and Michael had seen Henry at an adult bookstore, which was known to be frequented by gay men. They identified him by his vehicle, his license plate, Money Man, and he was wearing a wedding ring, so they figured he would be a good target, and they were going to rob him. They get into Henry's vehicle. Yosvani tells Henry that he's actually there to rob him, that he wants his money, that he wants his jewelry, and that he's going to take his car from him as well. Henry puts up a fight. Yosvani shoots Henry in the face, and now they're in sheer panic.
After placing Henry's body in the trunk, Yosvani and Michael take off with his car.
They drive out to the Everglades. Michael helps Yosvani take the body out of the trunk. They dump the body in the water, and then they take off and head back to Hialeah.
The men then leave the car in the parking lot of Maria's apartment building.
Michael then gets his car and then takes off, and that's the last he saw of Yosvani.
Then Yosvani goes on a spending spree, using Henry's credit card to buy groceries, gas, and shoes.
He has a wallet in his hand, he has money, he's paying with somebody else's credit card, but Yosvani does not give anything to Michael, according to what Michael says.
It seems cold-blooded simply because he could have just robbed him, taken his wallet, taken his watch, and just let him go on his way. He didn't have to shoot and kill him, but by Henry refusing to cooperate, he felt the need to kill him.
This case is very tragic because you have an upstanding member of society who has, a sexuality that he doesn't feel comfortable or doesn't want to reveal, who's been deliberately targeted for that. And for what purpose? I'd like to think that there was a deeper motivation here, but it may be that you have some killers who have features of garden variety psychopaths, and they're just killing over a small sum of money because of what they want in the moment.
Yosvani Fernandez is convicted of second-degree murder and armed robbery. He's sentenced to 25 years. Michael Rojas Perez is convicted of being an accessory after the fact and receives a sentence of 18 years.
We had so many items of evidence that gave us information, where somebody was at a certain time, where a vehicle was at a certain time. And the timelines in this case really helped us in terms of solving the case.
When you sit and put it together like a puzzle, it all matched up. I'm happy and proud of the work we put in as a team. We've invested a lot of time, time away from our own lives, our families, our children. And you know now that you can go and sit in front of a family and give them closure.
What I remember most about this case is that this was a man who had 3 young children and a wife, and the circumstances with him going on the cruise and not showing up, and then them not finding his body for so many days, it was just really tragic, really tragic.